Okay, hello and welcome to MSDynamicsWorld.com's Fall 2015 Financial Automation Webcast Series. I'm Jason Gumpert, and I'm joined today by a returning speaker for us, and someone who many of you may already know. That is Jody Christensen of Microsoft. Jody is a program manager for Dynamics, and we're really excited to have her joining us today to talk about the employee self-service capabilities of GP 2013 through 2015 R2. We do invite you in the audience to add your feedback and ask Jody questions today. She'll be saving some time to answer questions at the end of the session. You can use the Q&A block that you should see to the right of the main slide window. And without further delay, I am happy to welcome Jody. Are you there?
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everybody. As Jason said, I'm Jody Christensen. I am a program manager here at Microsoft and working on Dynamics GP and a lot of the functionality that we've added since GP 2013. So I will be going through the slides to show you the different features that we have added, and then I'll do some demo at the end so you can see some of the features that we've added. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get started here. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a one-stop shop so you can see what we've added and in what version. So depending on the version that you're on or the version that you're going to upgrade to, this is what has been available for the employee self-service area inside of Dynamics GP. So in 2013 R2, this is where we put in some of the functionality for purchase requisition entry, payroll time cards, project timesheets, and then we did create some of those new homepage parts and simplified that navigation for the employees to get to this information. You'll also see down at the bottom there's Workflow 2.0. So the workflow works in conjunction with all of these self-service features. So I'm not going to be going into a lot of the workflow functionality because that's a whole webinar on itself. But just know that there is workflow functionality, and I will be showing some of it today. I just won't go into a lot of detail around the workflow capabilities. For 2015, we did add a lot more of the functionality in payroll, being the employee profile changes. You can view your pay stubs as well as your W-4. You can view the benefits that you are signed up for, as well as changing your direct deposit information, tracking your skills and training, and being able to view and update that. And as well, we added in the project employee expenses as well. And then we allowed the managers some different views so they can do the approvals and those types of things in an easier format. So in 2015, we did add a lot of that other functionality. If any of you are on Business Portal or were on Business Portal, most of that functionality from Business Portal was moved into the employee self-service area by 2015. So Business Portal is no longer offered on GP 2015, so if that's something that you are on, you would have to go over to the employee self-service areas, which are inside of Dynamics GP. So that's how we've moved into those areas. And then on GP 2015 R2, we did add some support around the self-service user licenses themselves. And then we did add the capability of viewing your W-2s inside of Dynamics GP. And then we also came out with an app called Time Management. And if you get time, I will show you that one towards the end of this as well. So I'm going to go into each of these areas individually so we can see what they are. And then again, I'll go ahead and do the demo as well here. So in 2013 R2, this is where we started with our employee self-service features. So the first one that I'm going to talk about here is our purchase requisition. So we had requisition management, which you could do out in Business Portal. And what happens is users are going in, logging in, and entering requisitions for different items or goods that you do or do not track in inventory. You can use both. And then what you can do then is inside of Dynamics GP, those users can actually enter those requisitions. They can go through the approval process with workflow, and then from there they can be turned into an actual purchase order itself. So this did replace the requisition management inside of Dynamics or inside of Business Portal. Now we have everything available inside of Dynamics GP. So that's the requisition piece. And then we also had the time card entry for payroll. So on the payroll side, you could enter a time card and submit that over to payroll. You can also do the time on behalf of if you need to enter time on behalf of your employees. And then again, we did have this go through the workflow as well. So those do get approvals inside of Dynamics GP, depending on how you want to do the approvals. I'll talk about that when I do the demo, but that's the time management piece. And then also on 2013 R2, we did project time. So if you're using the project accounting module and users were entering timesheets, this is a new window inside of Dynamics GP where you can enter a timesheet against a project, very similar to how we used to have Personal Data Keeper or Business Portal where you were entering a timesheet. And now you can do that inside of Dynamics GP as an employee self-service user and entering that time. It goes through the approval process as well with workflow, so that's something that's new. And then it can continue on and you can build that out through project accounting. Okay, and then for 2015, this is where we added a lot of the functionality on the payroll side, so I'll go through those first. So the employee profile and workflow. So employees can log in, they can update their information as far as their name, their address, personal information like their spouse's name, that type of information, your phone number. You can also see there's different tabs up there so they can update their emergency contacts, they can update their dependents. And then the position history, that fourth tab is actually just view only, so you wouldn't be able to change anything there, but employees could go in and just view that information if they wanted to. But you'll also see at the top there is the submit, so once they change that, it may not necessarily need an approval through a manager or the payroll department, but what you can do is just let them know that you're changing something, and it will go back and update your information inside your employee maintenance window, so your employee card for the actual employee, but it does go through an approval process of some sort, just letting people know what you're changing. But that was available starting in 2015. We also added our pay stubs. So there's a window that you can go in and view your pay stub information. If you need to go back and print your pay stubs or something like that, you'd be able to check the box and view them and then print the reports that are available from this window. So there's a navigation list that we've created that allows you to do this information. So again, just ease of use for the employees. They can go in and get the information that they need right from their pay stubs instead of having to go to the payroll department or something like that and asking for those pay stubs. All right, and then W-4s. We do have the ability, again, this was moved over from Business Portal, where you can update your W-4 information, you can add it, you can change it, update your deductions and withholdings, that type of information. And then there is a submit process, again, through the workflow that, again, needs not necessarily an approval, but a notification if you want to call it that, so they can go in and approve that information. It keeps track of the history, so if you do change that, you can go back and view the history of any of W-4s that you've entered or submitted before. So it does keep that information for you. All right, then the benefits view. This is actually just a view-only window. So you can either view all benefits or the ones that are active just for you. You can come in and see that type of information in the benefits window. There's nothing that you would change here. It's just if you want to view or if the employees want to view what information they have for benefits, this is where they can view that information. All right, so we're still on GP 2015, and employee direct deposit was also added in this version where employees, again, could go in and update their direct deposit information. They can add or remove accounts, and then again, it gets submitted through workflow and gets approved or notified, the correct people, and then from there, it'll update the direct deposit information for the employees. All right, and then the skills and training. So this again was 2015, and the employees, if you're using the skills and training piece, you can see the education, there's the tests, and then skills and training, or skills and then training history are view only, so they can view that information, but they could update the education and the tests if they are using that pieces of information. And then again, they would go through the workflow and get approved, and then they'd be updated on the employee's record inside of Dynamics GP. All right, so once the employees have their information, the managers themselves, there's a couple of different things that we did for the managers. So the managers do have a team profile. So there's a navigation list where they can see their entire team. And there are a few things that the managers can update as well, one of them being the employee profile. So instead of having the employee update it, the manager could come in and update that information if needed. They wouldn't be able to do the position history because that is still a view only, but managers do have the ability to go in and view that information as well and do that on behalf of their team members. And then also the skills and training is another area where the managers can view and then update that information as well. And this is driven from a navigation list as well. And I'll show you that during the demo, what the different views are for the managers so you can see what exactly they have access to. All right, and then for the managers that have to do the different approvals, we've got quite a few different types of approvals that can happen as far as, the time cards, the skills and training. We have the W-4s, if there's any direct deposit information, profile changes, that type of thing. So there's a lot of different approvals that the managers would have to do. But we did make one navigation list for their approvals. So if the manager goes into what we call the HRP pending approval navigation list, they'll be able to see all of the different documents or things that they need to approve for different employees. So it's their whole team, and anything that's been assigned to that manager, they'd be able to view that in just a one navigation list. So less clutter, less things that they have to go through and view, that they have just one list that they're able to do that with. All right, and then again, this is 2015 for Dynamics GP, and then the last part that we did add in is the project employee expense entry. So we had timesheets in 2013 R2, and then in 2015 we did add the employee expenses. Again, that was from Personal Data Keeper or PDK and or Business Portal, depending on what users were using. But now they have it inside of Dynamics GP. So that does replace the PDK and Business Portal that users may have been using with the project accounting module. And that's what we added in 2015. Okay, and then 2015 R2, we did add a few more things around employee self-service. So we did add the support for the self-service user type. This was a new user type for 2015 R2, and what this allows you to do is assign those users to that self-service user type, but then we also made it really easy to set these users up because we have default roles. So we have employee manager roles, as you can see in my screenshot here, but we also have a role for project time entry, payroll, and then the requisition management. So it's really easy to set up these users, assign them to those roles, and then they can continue entering the information that they need inside of Dynamics GP. So the self-service user roles and the licensing, it's just easier for setup and that type of information for the users. Then we did add the ability to view your W-2. This is something new. We haven't had this before, but now we do have the ability to go through and view the W-2, and then they can print their own W-2. It will display in the time management home part on the home page, which I'll show you here in just a little bit once we get into the demo. But this is something that we did add recently in 2015 R2. All right, and then finally we have our time management app. So this is a Windows 8 or Windows 10 app that you could download and install on the workstation. It does work with iOS iPads and then Android tablets as well. So if you're using one of those, the time management app is for vacation and sick for your salaried employees. It's not designed for hourly employee entry at this time. So it's something, the exceptions basically, if you have salaried employees and they need to enter time for vacation or sick, then they can use this time management app. If they're using HR, they can use different time codes as well. If you've got different time codes set up for, jury duty or something like that, that can be used as well. So it's payroll or HR, depending on how you have that set up. But again, I will show you this a little bit if we have time at the end as well. Okay, so I'm going to open up GP and go in and show you Dynamics GP itself and go through a few of the demonstrations here. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm actually using our web client or our browser client for Dynamics GP. It's the same information if I was using the desktop client. I wanted to show you both the employee view and the manager view. So I'm going to log in as two different users. So right now I'm logged in as Jen, and she's going to be the employee. So I have the employee information set up for her, and then I'll log in as myself as the manager, and then show you the approval stuff and the approval navigation list and that type of thing as well. But the first thing that you'll notice once you're logged in as the employee, there are these 3 homepage parts. And not saying that the employees would need all three. Obviously, if you're not using them, you don't have to show them. But I just wanted to show you when a user logs into Dynamics GP as the employee self-service user, they get access to these parts if you're using them, and then they get access to whatever they need to do right from this home page. So you can see for time management for my time cards, I have all of my information right here. I even see my vacation and my sick leave balance if I have that in here. If I scroll down, here's all of the I need to options. So if I need to go through and enter timesheet or view my pay stubs, update my skills and training, I have quick access to all that information right from my home page. I don't really have to navigate anywhere else. It's just right here on my home page. Same thing with project time and expense. If you're using project accounting and you need to enter that timesheet or expense report, we have a list of those actions right from this page. We even show you our recent documents as far as what we've entered, the last couple times or the last few documents, that type of thing. And then, of course, for requisition management, if users are entering requisitions, we have the same thing available here, where we have our tiles that show us what's saved. If there's something that is ready for purchase, meaning it's been approved and completed, that we can go through and turn that requisition into a purchase order as well. And then, of course, we have the requisitions list. So right from the first time I log in, I view this information, and I can see the information as the employee self-service user. So I'll start with project time and expense and requisitions and show you those few things, and then I'll go into most of the payroll stuff after that. So just very quickly, I'll go in. If you're using project accounting and users need to enter a timesheet, they can log in to Dynamics GP. The setup information, of course, is going to be done. So this is just entering a timesheet for the hours that they've spent, on a project or on a job. So they can come down here, enter their information, their project. They can enter their task. The lookup information works as well. I'm one that likes to type. So I enter my information, and then I can enter the hours that I've worked. My week happens to start on a Thursday here for whatever reason when I set this up. So I can come through and enter my time. If I need to enter billing notes, my note icon, of course, is right here. I can enter my billing note, whatever that may be. I can attach that, and then this is my submit button. So once I hit submit, this is going to route this through the actual approvers, and then from here, the approver will get a notification through email saying you will have been assigned to this document, you need to go through and do the approval. So whether that's the project manager or your other manager, whatever the case may be, they will get an email notification. So that's actually something new on the project accounting side. We didn't have that before. We didn't have email notifications with approvals. So now that is something that we can get is an email approval, and I'll show you that here in just a few minutes when we're done going through these. But very similar to an old entry or old timesheet entry system for PDK or Business Portal, very similar there. All right, and same thing on the expense side for project accounting. I'll just open up the window. I can tab through. It creates my expense ID for me. And then again, I can go down and enter my project information. Oops, spell that correctly. Enter my information in here, and then I can go ahead and hit submit. And then the same thing again will happen. I'll hit submit, and then it goes out and shows me that it's been assigned to an approver, that type of information. If I do pull that back up in this window, I'll just select the one that I just entered. So what happens then, if I entered something and submitted it, and as the employee, I'm like, oh, I forgot to enter one more line item, I could recall it. As long as the manager hasn't approved it yet, I could hit recall and it would bring it back and I could finish entering it, and then I could resubmit it as the employee. You can see right now my pending approval is by Jody, and then gives me the date and time that it's due. There is an escalation path that you can set up if someone doesn't approve it, that type of thing. So I can also hit view history, and that would give me where this workflow is at. If it's got 3 or 4 steps to the workflow, it'll tell me where it's at in the chain as far as where it's pending and who's approved it, that type of thing. And this is available for all of our different workflows. Again, I'm not going to go through the actual workflow setup, but there is a setup information as far as who do you want to do the approvals and how long do they have to do the approvals. It's something that we set up inside of Dynamics GP. Some areas you have to have workflow in order to use the transactions, like project time and expense. You do have to have workflow set up to do the approvals in order to use it. Requisitions, you actually do not. So if you don't want to use the workflow approvals for requisitions, you don't have to. So there are some things that you can decide how you want to do those. All right, so I'm going to go down to the requisition area. Again, I'm logged in as the employee. And if I want to take a look at an existing requisition, I can do that. So all I have to do is click on my requisition number, and it will open up my requisition entry window. You can see that I've entered a requisition for my laptop. And I don't have to enter, all of the information that's necessary in order to purchase something like the vendor, the cost, that type of thing. If I, as the employee, entering the requisition, if I don't know all that information, that's fine. I can submit it without it. It's just the vendor would need to be filled in by someone in order for it to be finally, fully approved at the end or completed. But I could certainly hit submit right now, and that will go through and notify the approver that, yes, this is pending. So I'll just bring it back up so you can see that. Actually, I don't even have the workflow turned on for this one because I was going to show you that I don't need to. So the workflow is not turned on for this one, so it actually would be ready to purchase as long as I have everything filled in. So I'd need to fill in the vendor information. The little asterisk, that's where the information needs to be filled in before I can actually purchase this requisition. So, but again, the requisition, really the only things that are needed by the employee or the user entering the requisition would be the item in the description. So there's really not a lot that's required. You can have that fill in as the requisition gets approved, like by the purchasing agent or something like that. They can enter that information. But entering the requisition is very easy. Again, right from this homepage. If you want to view all of the requisitions or find a specific one, you do get access to an inquiry window where you can come through and say, what all has been entered and saved or what's been submitted, that type of information. I currently don't have anything else in here. So that's all the information. But again, right from that homepage part, I can view that type of information. All right, so let's move over into the payroll HR side. So we'll go to the time management chart that we have here. And again, I have lots of different options as the employee. So entering time for the pay period, that's the first one that I'll go into, and just enter a time card. So what this is going to do, in payroll, of course, we can have multiple time periods open. So I'm going to bring up the window where I see that information as far as what actually do I have set up for the different time periods. And I've got a few different ones set up out here. You can see that over on the right-hand side here, the status is pending user action. So apparently I've submitted one to the manager. And if I scroll down this week, the 10/29 to 11/4, which is the date that I'm using today, I haven't submitted that one. So I've entered a couple hours, but I haven't submitted that one yet. So if I want to continue on with that one, as soon as I click it, you'll see that down here, the information does fill in as far as what has been entered. But if I want to continue entering my time or finish that one, I just click Enter Time up at the top, and then it brings up, what I've already entered, which is my, 8 hours of vacation last week, and maybe I decide I'm going to take 8 more on Monday, so I can enter my time here. Yeah, I'm entered or set up as a salaried employee, so I have my vacation here. But if I was hourly, I could certainly pick my hourly and enter, my hourly days throughout the week. So I can do that and hit Submit. And then again, my supervisor or whoever I have set up as the workflow approver, they're going to get an email saying you have a timesheet or a time card to approve, and they can go in and do that here. So the employee can enter their time card. They have a template if they want to, use a template to enter their hourly time, that type of thing. They can do that from here as well. So that's entering the time card itself. All right, updating my profile. So that's another area that's commonly used for the employees as far as entering or updating their information. So if they need to put in, if they want to put in like a nickname or something like that, they could update that information. If they've moved, they could, put in their new address in here. So I can update my address, whatever that may be, other information. There's emergency contacts. If I wanted to put in an emergency contact, I could enter that information. If I need to update my dependents, I can come in and put that information in here as well. And then once I've changed something, I can see that I've already actually done something that I've changed and it's pending approval by me. So I'm not going to submit this other one. I'll just cancel what I've changed. But this is where the employee can come in and actually view that information and update that information. I already have something that I've changed for this employee, so that's why it says recall. I can only have one pending out there at a time. But if I did want to change something else, I could recall it and then just resubmit it for the manager since they haven't actually approved it yet. Okay, so I'm going to close that one. And then update skills and training. That's another area where we can go in and update the information as well. And I am going to hit recall just so you can see how this works. So I've already done the change on this one, but I'll hit recall. And now if I go back into my skills and training area, you can see that it says recalled because I am logged in as Jen. And now I have a resubmit on here. So if I needed to change something else in here, maybe I needed to add something on my test, I can go over to that area. Apparently I don't have something in there. Or skills. Okay. My sample data is not updated very well. Okay. Maybe I needed to change the state. I entered it wrong. Something like that. I can come in and change what I need to, hit resubmit, and now that's going to go through to the manager as well, and I can resubmit that information. So updating my profile information is really easy right from my homepage. Get access to it. So W-4 is the next one. So we have our W-4 information. You can see here's the history that I have as far as one of them. If I go to the W-4 tab, if I want to change something, I could come in and change something. If I needed to do something like that, I could sign my name and then submit that to my supervisor or payroll department, however you want that set up. As far as routing it to different users, you can do that as well. All right, pay stubs. So, very common request. Employees need to know last few pay stubs if they are going to go get a loan or whatever the case may be. So there's just a navigation list that we have that shows all of their checks. So I can just highlight one of them if I want to view it, or there's a print button. I certainly have that capability as well. But I can come back and view my employee pay stub and then print this from here if I need to, get the last couple of them, that type of thing. But pretty simple to come through and do that. I'm going to close that. All right, direct deposit, again, the same thing. So I can come into my direct deposit window if I want to add anything or change anything. I can add accounts. I can remove accounts. It is pending approval. That's why the stop deposit is not available. I'd have to have that approved or cleared first, and then the stop deposit would be available for me. But if I want to view history, I can see anything that's, it originated, and then I recalled it, and then it was resubmitted. I can always come back and see where it's at in the status, that type of information. All right, and then this is the benefits window. In the benefits window, you can see what's active for me as the employee, or I can click all benefits and see everything that's out there. I think I'm signed up for everything on this one. Yeah. So this is just a view only. You can't do anything with this window as the employee, but you are able to view the information so you can see what all is assigned or what's available and maybe that you're not taking advantage of that you would like to. So it's just a view into your benefits if you're using that piece of GP. Okay, so I've gone through, looked at most of the information in here for, the employee and the different information. The view print my W-2, I don't have, you have to have the year-end close done, and I didn't have that done on this company, but I do have another install where I can view print my W-2. So this is just my Dynamics GP on my desktop. And if I go into the view print W-2, you can see that I do have my year-end here, and I can hit view, and then there's my W-2 that I could then print out. So again, the employees can do that information or view that information themselves. They don't have to wait for someone else to get that for them. But there's the W-2 information. Okay, so I mentioned that, as we've gone through and looked at all of the different options that we have in here for workflow, there is an email that gets sent. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I will show you an example of what an email will look like. So I'm logged into my Office 365 email. You can see in here it says you have a task assignment for the payroll time card, form 1029 to 11/4. So it does give me, this is just a standard default email. These emails actually can be changed if you want to add more information on them. If you have the web service capabilities installed, you can do the approve and reject right from your email. So you wouldn't actually have to log into Dynamics GP in order to do the approvals. You would be able to just view the information out here in the email. And then if you wanted to approve, reject, there is a delegate option as well. I don't have that one turned on, but I could delegate this to someone else too right from my email. But it does give me the option to view that information right in my email and then send it off. So if I wanted to print, the date, the time, the days off, that type of thing, you can put the details in this email too if you want the users to approve it from an email rather than doing it from Dynamics GP. So those are the options for that. Okay, let me go back to GP. I'm going to actually log out as the employee, and then I'll log back in as the manager. Again, I'm just using the GP that we have running in our web browser. We certainly don't have to do it this way. Everything on the desktop works just fine as well. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so I'm logging in as my user now, and I'm just going to show you some of the manager information that we can see. And it's connecting here, so it'll be just one more second. Okay, so again, I'm logging into GP. I just need to change my date to today. Just because that's when I've entered some of the time card information, so we can see that. All right, just going to refresh my home page. Okay, so as the manager, I do have access to those same three parts. I have my procurement for my requisitions, I have project time and expense, and then I have the time cards as well, or the time management on the payroll side too. So you can see that as a manager, you have access to those as well. So if you want to view that, so you know how many timesheets are out there, or expense reports, or what's pending user action. So I've got 5 things assigned to me as the manager. What do I need to go in and do for the approvals, that type of thing. Just depends on how you want to navigate around Dynamics GP, but it's pretty simple to do that from this home page, and that's where you can view some of that information. If I look at some of the project accounting stuff, so I'm just going to open up one of the timesheets. It says pending user action, so it's pending approval by Jody. So if I take a look at this timesheet, I can do that inside of Dynamics GP. I can take a look at the timesheet, make sure everything's okay. And then I just go up to workflow, and I have the same options, approve, reject, and delegate, which you can set up. If you don't want people delegating approvals, you can turn that off for certain workflows. But if I click on workflow, then I do have the approve option right from here, and I can go through and put in a comment, and I can hit approve. Oh, come on. Okay, that's not supposed to happen. All right. We'll pretend that didn't happen on this one. Okay, so apparently I just had a little issue with my workflow approvals for my user. I'll take a look at that. But same process for all of the different things that I've entered as the user. The manager, supervisor, whoever it is that you want to do the approval can go in and do the approval. If you want more than one to do the approval, if you want the majority to approve, there's different ways to set up your workflow capabilities. You don't have to go, just have one person. There are different ways to set up your workflow in order to do the approvals. So we can, take a look at that here in just a little bit as well. The same thing with our purchase requisitions. If it says ready to purchase, if I click on that, what this is doing, these are the requisitions that have been approved. They are completed. They are ready to actually purchase. And it's bringing up a navigation list for me, I thought. Okay. Let me do it a different way then. I'm going to go over to my purchasing side here. I just want to check, see if I have the purchasing requisitions here. Okay, apparently I'm having an issue with my requisitions. All right. Okay, let me go back to my home page. Okay, so let's go over to the time cards. So with the manager for the employees, really the best place for this is the navigation list. So if I go over to the HR and Payroll navigation list, so if I scroll down, we've created a few different navigation lists depending on what people are looking at and what they're needing. So if I go to current time cards, I could take a look at the time cards for this period. I'll let that come up here. Okay, apparently I'm having an issue. I'm just going to see if this will finish here in just a second. There's a few different navigation lists that we can do. If you're wanting to do specifically time cards, this would be one area that you could go. This would be for the employee, their current time cards, what's available to them. So that would be one place, you could go through and do that. There is a specific navigation list for time cards pending approval. So as the manager, I could come in and see the different time cards that are assigned to me as the manager. So can see that Jen is the one that entered these. These are the ones that are pending approval. I mentioned that there was also another navigation list. Let's see if I click on one of my time cards here. My approve is going to be available up here. Let's see if this will go through for me. No. Okay. Physics succeeded, so we'll just go with that. All right. So if you wanted to do just specific to time cards, you can come in and do the time card approval in this navigation list. But if you're someone that does the approval for all of those employee changes like the profile and W-4 and skills and training, those types of things, this is the one navigation list that we have that allows you to come in and do that all at the same time. So if I have the profile, skills and training, direct deposit, if I know those are all okay, I could mark all three of those and hit approve or complete and move on to the next thing. You can see down in the preview pane down below, I can see what's been changed or what's been entered depending on what I have highlighted. So if I look at the skills, I can come down here and updated my education. I can look at my profile. I can see that updates were done to the personal tab, that type of information. So if I want to do all the approvals right from here, I can click approve, complete, or if I need to reject it, it would send that back to the employee with an email saying this has been rejected. You can put a comment in as well. So that's how the manager or supervisor would go through and do the pending approval. There's also the My Team. So if I come in and look at the My Team, the group ID of 0, that's the manager, and then there's also the employees that are assigned to that manager in the list, so I can see my entire team. And then if I needed to go through and update something for one of my employees, I can go ahead and mark the box, and then I could go to the employee profile. And this will open up the employee profile for Pilar, who is my employee, and then I could change something in here if I needed to as the manager. So the managers, you can give them access to change this information as well. Again, just depending on how you want to set that up. But the managers do have access to skills and training and then the employee profile. And then they also can enter time cards on behalf of someone else. You can set that up on the payroll side as well. So those are the different navigation lists that we have on the HR and payroll side. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here just a couple minutes. Okay, so if I go over to the administration tab, I'm just going to pull up my user setup window. Actually, let me pull up. I don't think I have it. Let me see here. Okay, I'm going to pull up my user. I am set up as a full user, but I'm just going to show you the drop-down list. So we have our full, limited, and then self-service. So you can set up the users that only need to enter, the time cards in payroll or in project or the requisitions. If that's all they're needing to do is any of the self-service functionality that I've talked about today, they could be set up as a self-service user license. So that's where you would set them up as far as the license itself. And then I mentioned that we have new roles for these self-service users. And if I took a look at our security window here, and again, I'll just pull myself up here. I'm just going to scroll down so you can see the information in here. But so I must have missed it. There we go. Okay, so you can see there's the manager for employee self-service. So if you're in payroll and you need to do the approvals, that type of thing, you can use the self-service manager. But then there's the employee self-service for the employee, which would be the HR payroll side. There's one for project time and expense if you're using project accounting, and then purchase requester, for the requisition management side for entering purchase requisitions. There is benefit self-service if you're using that add-on as well. But this is just an easy way to go in and assign these roles to be as employees, and then that will give them access to the windows that they need as far as entering the time card or updating their profiles, that type of information. So you don't have to worry about which windows to grant access to, that type of thing. You can go ahead and set them up in the user security window. Just assign them to those roles, and then you'll be able to see that information. So that's where we would set up the user license there. Okay, I've got a few more minutes here. I'm going to show you the actual the time management app that we came out with. I have it loaded here on my laptop here, and the time management app, it works like I said on Windows 8 or Windows 10. Then it also works on iOS, like iPads, and then on Android devices as well. So it's in all three stores. But what you can do with this app, if you've got salaried employees and they just need to enter their time off, sick leave or vacation, that type of information, they could use an app like this to do that. So you'll see over on the right-hand side, there's time cards and that type of information that's going to be available as far as what they've already entered or submitted. And then in order to enter something, it's really easy, especially with your mouse, or you can even do this with your finger if you're on a touch device. So if you highlight a day, you get the option in here. So these are the different codes that I have. So I have vacation 1, 2, and 2.5. But you can highlight the code, and then if there's defaults for 4 and 8 hours, if I could put 4 hours of vacation in that day, if I go over to the Friday, maybe I took 8 hours. Or if you want to enter time, maybe I took 2, I could just enter the 2 like that. So really easy to enter that type of information. I can highlight the whole week if I wanted to do the whole week and say, 8 hours every day. If I'm going to take the whole week off, or if I'm sick that whole week, that type of thing. It's pretty easy to come in and view that information. I can see what's been saved. So if I want to take a look at what's saved, or if I've submitted anything, anything that's historical, I'd view that here as well. You can see up in the right-hand corner, it does give me my vacation and my sick leave balance. Here I'm hooked up for just payroll. If I was hooked up to HR, I would see my other time codes in here as well. So I would be able to see that information. If I go to the next month, I can view that type of information too. So it does allow me to scroll back and forth. It's only going to highlight the days that I have open as far as my time periods. So maybe I only have, the current and then the next time period open. So I wouldn't be able to enter anything in December if there's, if it's not open. So it does gray those out. So it does honor that from Dynamics GP. So it's still using the same setup information that we have over in Dynamics GP as far as, what's available. If you enter something and save it, you would see it saved inside of GP as well. Once you submit it, it still goes through the same workflow that we have. You have to use workflow in order to use the time cards. So it's still, you'd still have to go through and enter that information and set all that information up as far as payroll. But employees that, if they don't have access inside of Dynamics GP, or, if they're on different devices, that type of thing, this could be a quick way for them to enter their time off or the exception time. Again, it does not work for hourly employees right now. It is only salaried employees and then entering their exception time. So that's the time management app itself. Okay, I'm going to go show you one more thing since I have just a couple more minutes, and then I'll take some questions. I'm actually just going to go in and show you a little bit of the workflow, just so you can see what that is like as far as the setup itself. So it's under the administration area, and there is a workflow maintenance. Like I said, a lot of the areas in employee self-service, you need to have workflow. Requisition management is an exception. You don't have to do workflow if you don't want to. But if I take a look at my drop down here, I'll select payroll. And this is all the different options that we have for payroll. So you can see I have my workflow set up for my employee profile. And I have these set up pretty simple. So I really only have one step in my workflow, that anytime employee profile changes are made, I always require approval, and it's going to be assigned to me. And then this is where you can have the option of whether you want to send the email or not. If you want to send the email, all you would have to do is hit send, and then the default message will come up, and I'll show you that message here in just a minute. But you can have multiple steps in your approval if you want it to go through maybe the supervisor and then go over to the payroll department or something like that. You can have multiple steps. We also have a task step instead of calling in an approval step. If you have a task, maybe you just want to notify the payroll department, or you want to notify IT or something like that, you can put in a task in here and set it up that way as well. So that's a task that they have to complete, not necessarily do an approval step. But that would be one way to do this as well for the workflow itself. So each workflow type, so employee profile is a type, employee skills is another type. Those can have different paths. They can have different approvers. When you go to the assign, this is using Active Directory. So if I open up my window, there's people in groups. So if you want an Active Directory group, you can set it up that way. You can also do hierarchy. So if I start with the workflow originator, you could have it go to the direct manager. So if their manager is set up that way in Active Directory, you can do it that way as well. There also is skip level managers, that type of thing. And then you could also assign it through the employee itself from Dynamics GP. So there's different ways that you can set up the actual approvals. I'm just going to go back and leave it set to my user. And then the email messages, again, we have default email messages that go out with all of the different workflows that we have. If you want to edit those, we can just go into the message setup window, and you can edit the information that's in here. So if you wanted to add more information in here, as far as different, last name, middle name, hire date or something like that, you can certainly add that information in here. If there's document lines, employee profile won't have one, but like if you wanted to add the hours and the time off and that type of thing for the time cards, you could do something like that in the document lines and then just edit the actual emails that are going out. So you do have the capability of doing that type of information. So that's just a little bit on the actual workflow itself. Oops, that's okay. Okay, so I will go back to the slides here, and I can take some questions. I'm sure there's a few in there at least.
There are quite a few questions, Jody. Nice work there, and we can start getting to those. If you haven't asked your question yet, please put it into the Q&A block that you see to the right of the slides. Several have come in, and we can get right to them. Do you want me to sort of queue those up for you, Jody?
Sure.
Or do you want to? Okay. So is it possible to configure individual change screens to not require approval? And this person says, Mike says, I see no reason to approve an address change, for example.
You do have to have some approval for most of these, but you could have the employee themselves approve it. So they would have to submit it and then just bring it back up and hit approve. If you don't want it to do anything else, you could do that. You do have to have something, though, but the employees could do it themselves.
All right, we have a few questions about what works for Canadian payroll. They are kind of different questions, but would you want to maybe take a few of those together?
We don't really have anything in our employee self-service that works with employee or with Canadian payroll. I mean, Canadian payroll works in our web client and it works out in the browser, but we don't have those integrated with our self-service. If there's a specific question I didn't answer, I can take that though.
Some of them are just saying, do these enhancements work with Canadian payroll? Time cards, and then the other one that I spotted here was the self. Let's see, what was it here? The time management app.
The time management app does not work with Canadian payroll either.
Okay. So if we do not own the payroll module, but we are using timesheet entry, is there a way for a manager to see a list of their direct reports similar to the list available in the payroll list?
Can you read that one more time?
Sorry. If we don't own the payroll module, but are using timesheet entry, is there a way for a manager to see a list of their direct reports similar to the payroll list?
I wonder if they're using timesheet entry in project or if they're using it. I'm guessing they're using it in project because you can't really use timesheet entry if you're not registered for payroll or time card entry for payroll. You can set up, the employees and their managers and inside of payroll if you're not using payroll, but you're not going to be able to get the navigation list to work the way that I showed anyway, because there's not going to be a way for you to do the My Team, and you have to be using payroll in order to view that information. You could use a smart list more than likely, because you could, just base that off of how the employee cards are created and who the supervisor is. So you could probably use a smart list, but I don't think you're going to get the navigation list like I showed you, no.
Do time codes need to be tied to a pay code in order for time management to work?
Yes, they would.
All right. What kind of licenses are required for these? It says these kinds of entries, and I believe this was earlier on in your session,
Yeah,
in your demo.
Yep. So the self-service user license can be used for anybody that's entering timesheets in project accounting or employee expenses, the requisition management, any of the payroll functionality, as well as the managers themselves. So if all they're doing is entering or approving the information that I showed you today, the self-service user license is fine. If you want managers to be able to go to some inquiry windows or run some reports, then they would probably need to have the limited users, because limited users can go to inquiry windows and do some reports and that type of thing. But self-service user license, they're pretty limited to what I showed you today as far as what they can actually view or enter.
What options are there for emails? Are they only sent via Outlook?
It has to be SMTP. That's how we set it up for workflow. I believe we've had customers that have been able to get, Gmail to work and some of the other emails to work, but some of them may have the actual emails do come through, but those actions that I showed you, the approve, reject, delegate, they may not work depending on how things are set up. There are some, I think it's Gmail, that there's just an option that you have to unmark or something, and if you need more information, just send me an email and I can get it to you. But it just needs to be SMTP. It does not have to be Outlook.
All right, a question about licenses for GP. Do you need a full license for each employee?
You need a license for each employee, yes, but it can be the self-service license. So it does not have to be a full GP user license. It can be a self-service user license, which are much cheaper.
All right, Tom asks, do you need to be on a company's internal network to utilize the self-service capabilities?
I guess I'm not sure what that question means. Like connected to the domain, well, maybe that's what you mean. For workflow to work, because it's using Active Directory, they would need to be connected that way in order to submit, so it would know who to submit to. It wouldn't work otherwise. But if you're using like email approvals, you can set it up for doing the approvals through email. As long as you have web services, you could do that. But that's probably still inside your domain, though.
All right. For for manager, is this tied to supervisor code, which is then tied to an EEID in GP, or is this defined as part of the workflow, or both?
Well, it's defined as part of the workflow. If you're asking who's doing the approval, the way that the approvals work, you actually assign it to the user. When I went into that workflow maintenance window and showed you the people in groups or hierarchy, that's who gets the email as far as who's going to do the actual approval. It certainly can be the supervisor, or if you're set up as in Active Directory as direct manager and that's who you want to do with the approval, you can set it up that way. It doesn't use the actual supervisor field from payroll. But the way that we set all of this up is you have your employee set up in GP, you have your user set up in GP, and then on the employee card, there's a way to assign a GP user ID to the employee. So that's the new part for all of this, to make it kind of work together so it knows which employee is assigned to which GP user ID. There is a setup for that on the employee card now.
All right. For the employee profile self-service, Heidi asks, can we limit what the employee can change? I know there's an approval process, but can we just hide some of the fields so they aren't tempted?
You could hide them with modifier, or there's not an option to turn fields off, but you could disable the fields through modifier or something like that, yeah.
All right. And for the benefits tab, do we have to be using the HR module to see EE and ER contributions from the benefit enrollment?
Yes, you would have to be using HR for that one. Yep.
Okay. Does each self-service user need to purchase a SQL license as well? So if there's 200 self-service users, is it 200 SQL client licenses?
Well, if they're logging into GP on the desktop, yes. If they're logging in through the web client or the browser client like I was showing you today, they do not have to have a SQL license.
All right. There was a question about, well, there were a couple of questions about access after the event today. So if people wanted access to the slides, Jody, is that possible? Or
sure. They can send me an email if they want. My email address is up on the screen. So if you want the slides, you can just contact me and I can send them to you.
All right. And someone else asked if we're recording today's event. We are recording it, and we'll be making that available in the next few days as well. All right. Sorry, just moving down the list here. Do you know if there are any plans for requisitions to work with GP PA module? And if so, any planned releases yet?
So requisition entry with project accounting, we are working on that right now, actually. That should be coming out in the next release.
All right.
I can't promise that, but we're working on it right now. So yeah, it should be there.
Are changes for employees held until payroll is finished?
As far as when it updates the employee records, it's going to update it as soon as it's approved. So it doesn't have anything to do with the payroll cycle or when you're processing payroll, it wouldn't have anything to do with that. As soon as the last approver approves something, it will go back and update the employee record.
And is there a record of who made employee-related changes and what was the prior value?
We can't track the prior value, but yes, it is stored in the tables as far as who made the change and who approved it. That's all going to be stored in the workflow history. So that will be tracked. As far as what it was before and after, we can't track that, no.
Will you be adding functionality to allow attachment of receipts to project expenses?
That is coming as well. Boy, it's like you read our minds.
Can or will the expense entry be available without using project accounting?
No, that is going to be tied to project accounting.
For accrued time off, does it work with both payroll accrual and HR accrual?
Yes, it does.
So these enhancements do not support Canadian payroll. Now, are there any plans to support this in the future?
As of right now, we don't have anything, for the next version. No, we don't.
Okay, so another question here. We currently do payroll fully in-house. Will this autofill a lot of the information I currently have to manually enter prior to processing payroll?
Can you read that one more time?
Yeah. Will autofill take care of a lot of the information that I currently have to enter prior to processing payroll?
I guess I'm not real sure what that means. I mean, autofill usually is, as you're entering transactions and, things like that. So I think it depends on, what exactly you mean what you're entering. I mean, transaction-wise, I would think that would help, but I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that one. So if I didn't answer your question, just send me an email and I can try and help you.
Okay, great. And yeah, so to Bridget who asked that, or Brigitte who asked that, yeah, feel free to clarify or to follow up with Jody. Another question, whom do we contact for pricing if we currently use the payroll module but want to add this feature?
Your partner. Go through your partner.
Okay. Do requisitions link to analytical accounting?
No, they do not. Not right now.
Does the time management app have an approval process for the time saved?
Approval process for time saved. Well, if you enter time and you save it and not submit it, no. You have to submit it in order to get it approved.
Someone wants to know if self-service user is the same as light user. They're not seeing both options listed wherever they're looking.
Well, light user was an old term that we had. We don't have light users anymore on 2015. I can't remember if we had them on 2013 anymore. Light users were an old term, so we don't have those anymore. So we don't have those. It's full, limited, and then we have the self-service.
All right.
Limited kind of replaced the light user.
Right, not one for one, but it was
No.
the new type of license.
Right.
And so let's see here. Are features related to certifications and licenses available in employee self-service yet for updating?
No, well, that's part of the benefits suite. I don't think they are. I don't have the full information on that. So again, just send me an email on that one and I can get some more information because I guess I don't know off the top of my head.
All right. Looks like we just have one more question here, so we'll make a last call. One other note, excuse me, please do look for a survey on the way out. Just should take 10 or 20 seconds, and we really do appreciate any feedback you can offer at the end of the session. So the question is, are there plans to make analytical accounting codes link to the requisitions?
At this time, we don't have any plans, but again, if you have suggestions like that, go out to our MS Connect site and enter those suggestions because we do take new features, directly from the suggestions that go out to that MS Connect site. So enter that and we can take a look at it.
All right, excellent. Well, we're ready to start wrapping up here. Jody, thanks so much for taking the time once again to join us and to answer so many questions for the audience.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. With that, and if you do have any other questions, Jody's put her contact information up for you. We did record today's event. We'll be making that available. With that, we will conclude today's event. Thanks, and have a great day.